Hi, hello, welcome to the SIG network meeting for Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. As usual, this meeting needs to abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which generally means be nice to each other. So first, let's go to triage. And at least amongst the open issues that have no assignee, it's a pretty short list. I will just go through them one by one. So first up is it looks like this is like a new issue that was filed against qproxy about the health Z endpoint. I'm presenting, just I can't tell with the Zoom. So after this person said that basically their CNI was not initialized, but it looks like qproxy health Z was reporting 200, and this was surprising to them. There was something about how this is the setup for their cloud provider, and there was a request to see if qproxy can kind of detect more network failures on the node as part of its health check. I did ask what they were expecting because it wasn't clear. Probably it was the CNI non-initialized. What they meant by health checks on networking availability, because this could mean many, many different things. And from my understanding, this works as intended because qproxy's responsibility kind of ends with the local programming. Like to extend it to check for many other different failure modes seems like it would be very hard to have like a good contract that it could meet. But I would love to hear other opinions on this one.
We discussed this in different places. I opened one in the node problem detector because Dan and I were discussing this. There was this presentation from Jay about node readiness gate. It's in the parking lot that is also related. But as you say, the problem is that there are situations that people may expect the data plane to work without the kubelet, for example. So it's really complex to understand what part of the stack should change the readiness on kubeproxy.
Yeah, I think like it sounds more like it's the readiness should not use kubeproxy because like generally speaking, you shouldn't be reporting health on more than you control. And also you have this issue of like dependencies, right? Like if you can't be healthy because someone external to you is not healthy, but then someone is depending on you to become healthy for that to become, it's like they get like circular dependencies potentially. So but what do we want to do with this issue?
qproxy's health is supposed to depend on the health of the node in some ways at least, and it does, like, it monitors something about the node status. I don't remember exactly what.
No, it does not. The load balancer cluster, it just monitors nothing. It does return.
My memory is fuzzy, but don't we have two endpoints because we used health Z for something that wasn't really health, and so we added a second? Maybe I'm misremembering. Is it
you and Alex?
Yeah, right.
Changed that.
I think we have ready Z, which would tell you whether the kubeproxy itself was ready. And I'm trying to remember the exact.
Assign this to me. I'll figure it out. And
the only impact is the IP tables failures are cascaded to the health endpoint.
Yeah, it was like I haven't been able to program the data plane in greater than X time, therefore.
Yes.
No. One of those two statuses, either the live Z or the health Z, whatever, absolutely looks at some node status element. Like that is part of what the node manager does.
That's something that you and the man changed, right? Recently, that's something with the node.
We changed the implementation details, but we didn't change what it reports.
Okay, now I'm confused, and I think that you are right, but I don't know exactly what is changing from the node.
But this is something that was changed as part of Alex's CAP, yes.
Okay. Yeah, maybe something of the draining or something like that. I don't know.
Okay, so Dan, you're gonna take a look at this one. It also seems like maybe DigitalOcean needs to use that other endpoint.
Possibly. We had
Yeah.
some updates to the documentation as part of that KEP, but I don't actually remember what we recommend now.
I mean, one of the things we figured out through that KEP was there's only so much you can know through this endpoint, and it may not be appropriate depending on how your load balancers are implemented. This may not be meaningful to you at all, right? Like if you're going direct to pods, this doesn't mean anything for you.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna mark this as triage accepted. I hope this is the right command. Yes, success. Okay, Dan, you're gonna give that what we just discussed as a blurb on here. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next one. So this one was a CV that was opened quite a long time ago, and I went through basically the discussion. Okay, so let's talk about CV first. So this is if you can patch service status, you can inject a bad external IP, and then you can basically route things to places or like capture traffic that shouldn't be captured. Now this very long discussion, and at the end of it, the solution was its admission controller. And then I think this one has just been kicked around a whole bunch, and someone reopened it 3 weeks ago with the reason that CV should be left open, it is vulnerable. But this is like a question. What do we do with these?
So we did add the admission controller to block external IPs. It is not enabled by default because we decided that would be an API break. And this guy seems to be saying that since the default configuration is insecure, therefore we should leave this open. And I don't know.
Yeah. There's another networking one that I was involved in. It was the external name one. Maybe it's one of the ones that was linked by the same person. That was also left reopened by Tabby for the same reason. Tabitha, for the same reason. Yeah, it seems reasonable because we have offered mitigations. We have not solved the issue because solving this.
Let me ask this. I really don't know the answer. I'm not like leading. Is this the right place to keep track of CVEs that we're not intending to fix? Because the fix would be a breaking change. Or are we open to this? This is a question maybe for Maintainer Summit that I've been thinking a lot about lately. Are we open to taking some modicum of risk in order to close a CVE like this that, you know, is a real CVE, but it also is a real breaking change? Historically, we've leaned towards, nope, not worth the cost, sort of as a default position. But are we willing to break this? And Rob, I don't remember what the other one was. Was it the ingress through external name one?
Yeah, so his external name was part of it, and the other part was basically just the way we designed endpoints was inherently flawed, and that anyone could set any IP and we would follow it. And
oh, right, but then endpoints, we actually did take away RBAC access for endpoints.
Right, but it's still, you know, that's a mitigation. I don't know that you can, you know, we basically said, hey, this is an admin feature now.
I don't see that as a mitigation. Like, it boils down to people with elevated access can do elevated things.
Yeah. I mean, it could be worth some more discussion on that one. We definitely, for external name, for example, we just said don't do this. I guess that's
right. I don't think
fine.
the external name there's anything we can do to fix that because that's a cross object validation thing.
Yeah.
So we said ingress controllers are not supposed to support this, and if you do, you're insecure. Endpoints, we said users are not supposed to use these. And if you do, you're insecure. And we actually took a big step there by changing the default RBAC.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did we change the
I mean-
RBAC for this one? I'm trying to.
One thing I'll say is we changed the default RBAC, but that only applies to new clusters.
Yes.
I guess we did provide
Right.
guidance for how you can migrate. So like,
Right. We didn't want to make
Sure.
a breaking change for an in-place cluster.
yeah.
But if you're turning on a new cluster, like you're obviously going to be running a qualification. I remember this conversation.
Yeah.
So the question here is, with this one in particular, it's in spec. Is there anything we can do to change this without breaking potentially somebody, or are we willing to take that risk?
Yeah.
Sorry, quick question. If you go into the original comment, it seems as though there's two.
Which one? Can you give me a reference, by the way?
The very top, the first one.
Okay.
It seems as though there's two ways to break this. So the one is spec.external IPs, and the other one is the status.loadbalancer.ingress.ip. So paragraph 3 of this comment.
Right. In general, end users should not have service status modify access, right?
So I'm wondering, I mean, like that feels like something we
That's
could
not a
fix.
bug. That's, again, elevated users have elevated privilege.
Right.
For better or for worse, status is an elevated thing beyond spec.
So the question here, I guess, is could we flip external IPs to disabled by default and document how to re-enable them?
That's the risk. And I think we as a SIG should decide if we are open to that level of risk, and then we should go and talk with the rest of the community, perhaps via SIG Arch or just a conversation at Maintainer Summit next 3 weeks. 2 weeks. And just say this is going to come up again, right? These sorts of probably it doesn't impact anybody. Can we take the risk of breaking it?
I think external IPs are still used. Yeah, we get bug reports about them.
The people from MetalLB and all this,
Yeah.
they use it a lot.
So perhaps we can find a better way. We could actually give a sub resource that allows access to it or something, right? But anything we do to change it, any governance we put on it is a breaking change for somebody, right? Are we willing to take that risk?
I mean, we could, feature gate it and have loud warnings if you need the changed RBAC status. And I would feel comfortable with doing that if we did it over several releases.
We did it for Git repo volumes. I mean, same sort of exposure.
Is there an equivalent? Sorry, I'm trying to understand. Are we talking about just disabling a period? Is there an equivalent functionality that people can use?
Nope.
Yeah, I think what Tim said about adding a sub resource and then saying you need to be given permission on that, and then you can make your metal LB controller have permission on the sub resource, and most other things don't.
Or teaching the metal LB controller to use the status fields instead. Like, if that doesn't work, let's figure out why that's not good.
Okay, but there needs to be some path. It's like we can't just feature gate it. That sounds like
we can't just delete it from existence.
Yeah. Okay, who wants to take
I'll
the
respond.
follow-up on
I'll
this one?
respond to this one.
I'm going to triage accept it. We discussed this. And then I'm not going to ping you, Tim. I think you get enough emails. Okay, so looks like that is all of the triage issues with no assignee. I'm just going to delete this, just check real quick. Oh, failed.
We're having.
All right. Okay. I was like, oh. So we have some time, so let's just quickly go to do allow gate. Oh, this is Tim.
Oh, I have a PR open that will close that.
Okay.
Which Tim needs to approve.
Incorrect endpoint slice metrics for dual stack services. Just quickly go through this one.
Daman had been working on this. There were a handful of interrelated kube proxy metrics problems. I don't remember for sure if this ended up fixed or not.
But someone is working on it. Do we
Someone
mark it as
had worked
accepted?
on it.
Okay. Do you want to ping them on this one?
Yeah, it's Aurora Daman, the last. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will go the last one. This one, endpoint slice selector. Is this also sort of in that area?
No, there was a patch for you. So I think you're on a different tab or something. Here we go. There was a patch for this, and there were problems with the patch, and I don't remember exactly what happened. It's a problem with the endpoint slice mirroring controller, and there was sort of this question about like, Hiram's law, I think, sort of, are people depending on the current behavior? Should we fix it? Why are people depending on the endpoint slice mirroring controller anyway? They should just use endpoint slices.
Okay, should we just re-accept it then? Or like what is trying to understand the next step on this? Isn't endpoints going to be deprecated anyways? Like
Right, but
the controller will still exist. Like they'll be deprecated,
Yeah.
but they're not going away.
Oh, I see.
because it's a V1 API, it's going to be around forever. We've, a lot of things, maybe most have moved to endpoint slices, but there's still some. I don't know. My guess is this is unlikely to get fixed or changed at this point because a fix seems so complicated to get right and relatively low value. Like the odds of making things worse with a fix are very high. But, that's my guess here. So I don't want to give any false hope.
Does someone want to put that comment there? Or what do we want to do with the issue is I guess my meta question.
Scroll back. I see when we marked it triage accepted before, I added a comment. Oh no, I guess that's the last time we accepted it.
Does someone want to say what Rob just said?
Well, we have the warnings if people use endpoints now. Yeah, okay, I'll comment on this.
I'll just mark it as accepted, and then we can drop a comment. Okay, so it looks like that's the end of the triage or the step instead. Let's go to the agenda. So Antonio, you have this topic.
Yes, do you have? This is a motivation for, I was brain dumping my thoughts. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, because I've been seeing, so we are growing. I see a lot of people new is joining. I see we are fragmented, the core meeting, that this meeting is always the same people, but we are expanding with satellite projects. And I feel that there is some disconnection and some misunderstanding in two sides of the spectrum. People that, I will go through the slides. So the first thing is when people come and get a project or get into some owner files or whatever, I mean, everybody wants to have fame and grow and help in the work or, I don't know, get to know or talk. So, but, you are signing for a responsibility. When you have a project or whatever thing, you have a responsibility. That's a contract you're signing. Another thing that I've seen in the other side of the spectrum is we are not, you are not signing to be a regulator. We are not we are not attorneys, we are not putting laws, we are not standardizing anything. We are an open source project and we create, maintain, and ship a product. And I'm saying this because I want younger people, maybe not aware, but when I've been 10 years in OSS, there are some implications on the things that you do. I worked in 3 startups. I worked in other companies, and I was manager. And when things go good, that's great. You go to QCons, you go to events, you have parties, you have better salaries, promotions, and these things. But when things go wrong, people get laid off, and companies shut down, and all these things. And you think it or not, the people that work in the projects has a part on that, right? So if you try to do things in the project, you think that maybe some of your actions or your decisions get another startup close, or I don't know, or some project need to close or whatever thing. So our actions has consequences, and then that's a neat solution, right? Then how do we work, right? So we have a lot of work on APIs. I think that one of the best things of Kubernetes is that it has APIs that just do what they are supposed to do. And then on those APIs, people build products, right? It's not Kubernetes, it's all the things that you have on top of that. You have Argo CD, Kubeflow, I don't know, all these Knative things, all these projects use this API, right? But then this is a controversial part lately. I don't think that you can be, as I started in the beginning, be a regulator body. You cannot be a standardization like in ITF. You go discuss your IPS. We are an open source, so we need some way of iterating, right? But the problem is that here is when the things go complicated. When we start to iterate, we have different models. We have a model that may hijack the ecosystem. We have another model that just don't drop anything, so we be so defensive. And I feel that we are getting into a point that we are getting stuck, and that's why I want to open this conversation to the whole SIG to discuss now is QCon and to have a more opinion. How do we want to proceed? Because it cannot be that for any new thing we have to have 200 conversations about is this good, is this not, is this in scope, can you hurt this or can you hurt the other? I think that's why it's important, the role of maintenance, and that's why I'm saying is when you are signing for something, you need to take all these things into account. And we as a SIG, I think that we need to have this discussion to have clear what do we want to do and how do we want to do it. I don't think that we are going to generalize or create a law, but I think that we can get a consensus on some guardrails and some lines that we don't need to cross for evolving. I've been working with this, and I know that some people share this way of working. I think that the projects that are scope, it just do one thing, is clear what the thing that is going to do, and it's not going to be from there. That are composable, that, okay, if I have this part and this other part, this work fine, but the important part is that we also want to grow an ecosystem. I mean, our sum of the parts is not competing with some project that can implement all these things. What we want is this project that are implementing all these things is to bring back the feedback, because the other thing that is happening is, oh, we don't have this feedback. Is, oh, I'm going to do everything with CRDs, and then Kubernetes is with the same APIs that 5 years ago. That's another problem that I think that we need to talk to is in this topic. Some examples of things that are working today. We have two network policies. We have Knet. We have cloud provider. Knet it was always alone in my fork, and I put in the repo for copyright and all these kind of things. Cloud provider kind, no IPAN controller. That most of you probably forget about that. It was a feature in tree, and we removed it, and there was one person, Alex Nemerov, or I don't know if it's Alex, that is still maintaining it. We have Nazi 4. There was a joke project, and there is people in my company maintaining it. We had the CNI DRA driver that Lionel started before we started even looking at DRA, on the content of DRA for networking before. The IP mask agent, I think that is from the beginning. I don't know if you were the creator, something like that. Dan created this IP table rack. And you see what? Those are reference implementations, and nobody cared. nobody cares about these projects. They have less than 100 stars. So that's the other thing, is when we start to talk with this, I start to get this feeling, oh, we are going to own the world. And I think that's the elephant in the room, right? It's what happened with Ingress engineers, but I'm going to talk about later. What I wanted to say is that when we are here, and this is, I was playing with the Gemini, and it gave me this sentence. I don't know. I put it in one of the prompts and say, when you're here, I mean, we go. Nobody's going to get famous because did a project in Signal. But what you are doing is you're going to be a gatekeeper of this ecosystem. Now we are onboarding people, and I think that we need to onboard the people so they can follow our work and keep the project going. So that's the open conversation. And this is the introduction, because we have this Ingress engineers problem that was going forever, and we don't have a solution. And when we don't have a solution and we are stuck, I take initiative and say, okay, if we don't have a solution, we can have a reference implementation that just do what the API does. And that simply that the same that kind and same the other things, and just doesn't do anything. Is SIG. I don't know if you see my screen with the demo.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's very small.
Okay. I don't know if this is the problem. So it's ridiculous, simple. It's for testing. It works with kind. It implements the API. It doesn't do anything else. So you need to compile, because I need to compile. Okay, so you need to go through the multi-arc. And sorry for the slow compilation. So it creates the image, it loads the images, it installs the Ingress, so you can get the Ingress, the pods. We're going to put a load balancer. And this is the reason why I resolve bugs so fast, because I have a lot of tooling like this that is not production ready, but is production the same. As it's the same environment. So if you do qctl Ingress, you see, oh, class is none, so it is not going to work. So if you patch now, it should get the class. And now if we get the load balancer IP, you do the curl and it should work. Full up, bar, whatever. And that's the demo. That's what it does. It doesn't do anything else. And make the work for the people that want to try the API, but then they want to run in production, just go and use something that gives you support or whatever thing. But at least the developers and the people can try things in their laptops and in their home or whatever. And that's it. I don't know. Did I stop sharing?
Yeah, at least I'm not seeing it anymore. But I did have a question, actually. I want to understand, like, what are your goals? Like, I think, there are a lot of Ingress implementations out there already. Ingress is a frozen API. What do you like? What do you hope this will accomplish? Or you may have already
have no, I didn't go. We have a long-standing situation, and I think that Ricardo is here, and with Ingress engineers, in the terms of we started a kind of what we thought was a deprecation phase, and it's not going to be deprecated, several reasons or whatever. And we start getting pressure from security and all the things. We have also all the documentation points to the project that makes the problem still more complicated. So the intention of this is, okay, you want to know how the API works. You have something on how the API works. You want to run this in production, then you need to go to the projects and you need to do your due diligence to understand, is this project supported, is this project secure, and all these kind of things. It's not a replacement, but at least a next step in a situation that I consider that we are stuck.
So what I'm hearing is this is not supposed to be used in production. How do we avoid production use? Like, I guess what I'm worried about is, like, what if this project ends up with CVEs or something like that? Like, do we have people that can maintain? And I know you can maintain it, but like, do we have anyone else?
So
Let's say
this is
if you're in
easy. We avoid people using it in production by having it not actually be useful.
Okay.
That's the point of the slide. The people only want the other projects because grow scope. If you do a reference implementation that only implements the API, who is going to use it? You can only do path and prefix filtering.
Okay, Ricardo's got a hand. I'll defer to him.
No, that's so. The first thing, and I know that like Tim, and then you're gonna hate me about that, but I've been, before we even jump on the reference implementation, I think I've heard at least twice in this meeting that we have GA APIs that are deprecated and shouldn't be used, but we are still using. So I'm not sure if this is some sort of conversation that we should have with SIG architecture at some time, saying like, hey, you know what, like this commitment of not deprecating or not removing APIs that are GA, they are going to be harmful long term. We are never going to have Kubernetes v2, and we still need to keep maintaining all of those controllers and APIs that we don't care anymore, but keep making noise around. Like they are anyway adding some sort of toil for Antonio and for conformance tests and others to keep maintaining things that we shouldn't probably be caring about that. But this is my first item. The second one.
Sorry, Ricardo,
yeah, go for it. Sorry. Yeah.
Speak to that one first. There's a fundamental difference between something like external IPs, which presents a security risk and is a field within a larger API that is a relatively small use feature, and something like ingress. Like, we can say ingress is deprecated, but it doesn't actually cause any active harm as an API. Implementations can choose to deprecate themselves, and that's completely okay. And if there remain 0 implementations of ingress left in the wild, well, then something has effectively happened without us having to have broken users. At least we're not on the hook for it. Now, does that matter to users? I don't know. Probably not. But yeah, as I'm typing up the external IPs response, I was thinking about it. So I see those as different. We have, as a project, taken a position that says we're not going to get rid of that API. There might not be any implementations left outside of core, but that's a different conversation.
Okay. I was just wondering, like how much of this commitment and how far we can keep that, like by the, the project lifetime. Like, let's say like 10 years, we will still be discussing that endpoints, they are deprecated, but some random implementation is using that because the API is there, like.
It may be at some point we say we have enough information or we have enough confidence that we could kill off ingress or we can kill off endpoints. I don't know what it would mean to have that confidence because we don't have a phone home. And the last time I brought this up, I got shouted down. So, we defer to safety where we can, right? And where there's no real risk. There's no real risk in security for endpoints. And if we disable it for default service usage, then there's no real risk for scalability either. Ingress, the same. We're not going to add new features to it. We can say no to new features. But I don't know that, my plan at this point is in 10 years from now, we will still have ingress and we'll still have endpoints v1, and hopefully nobody uses them and we can all hang our heads in shame about the design of them, but we'll still have them.
Okay, cool. The second thing that I had, I kind of forgot, but so I'll leave Rob to speak, and if I remember, I will raise my hand again.
Cool. So I think there's a lot of value in being default in Kubernetes docs. I am very nervous about that, right? Like the idea that we have a quote unquote blessed implementation that, this is something like we, for better or worse, have spent a lot of time trying to avoid in Gateway API, and maybe that was a mistake. But it is something that we have gone out of our way to avoid. And that's, I'm just very nervous if we have something like that is recommended by default in our docs everywhere. That just seems like it leads to production use, and like Dan's point, I think was Dan's point, like we just don't make it useful. Yeah, I get it. Like I think an ingress, an implementation that implements the pure ingress API and nothing else is probably not very useful. I'll get that, but I still think some people are going to use it in production. And somewhere, somehow, there's going to be, more just noise than we expect, right? There's going to be issues. There's going to be security. There's going to be patches required. There's going to be just a lot of work to keep things running. And I don't know. I'm nervous about this. I see, to be very clear, I see tremendous value in any API that is under active development, having a reference implementation to validate that the API is working as expected, and prototype new ideas seems incredibly valuable. And I'm really happy to see like cloud provider Kind, for example, doing that for Gateway API. Like that's been awesome. Thank you, Antonio. And Kube Network Policies, similarly, like awesome. But for an API that is kind of at the other end of its life cycle, it's already been frozen. There's no question that, the API can be implemented. There's 30 plus implementations of the API. I don't know how much we need this one, but open to other opinions here.
So I had suggested originally that instead of creating a new, or in addition to creating a new reference implementation, that we could change the documentation to just use the GCE ingress controller. I mean, yeah, in theory that's biased or whatever, but I mean, the point is not to recommend that people use a particular ingress controller. It's to just show how the API is used, and we can do that with GCE specific examples, right?
Do we need, so like Gateway API, for example, has a lot of documentation and a lot of examples, but it's, install your gateway controller of choice. Maybe that's a bad trade-off, but I would like to at least consider that here of like, install any one of these ingress controllers and then try any of these examples out and see how it works for you.
I mean, at some point you have to have an actual YAML that refers to an actual controller, right? Or
I mean, the only thing that would change there is the ingress class name, right? So just say like ingress class name, your implementation of choice, like template value here, and everything else would be constant. I don't know.
I do have a question, because we do have like some other Kate SIGs network projects like Ingate and stuff that like shouldn't we just make all the standardized implementations of this kind of thing like the new reference? Is that what Ingate is supposed to be?
Ingate is a gateway implementation, not an ingress implementation.
I see. They're not going to pick that up on the way to the store?
I mean, there was a whole plan, but the plan is not panning out.
Yeah, I think like to me, maybe it would be good to figure out what is the maintainership story. I know Antonio is going to be here forever, like and do everything, but like it is still, what is that long-term maintainership of this? I know it's small too, but and we should explicitly document, right? Like we're never going to entertain any feature requests.
So then the question is, or we do this, or we change the docs.
I mean, my vote for whatever it's worth would be to change docs, but I don't hate this if we can very, very clearly time box, scope it to not be production, not be default. Either way, we'd have to change docs. Like right now, I think we recommend Ingress Nginx without reservation. If our docs for Ingress start to refer to this thing, we would have to say, this is just an example. Do not use this in production. Do not whatever. Like we'd have to have a big disclaimer there, and still some people would ignore it. I'm sure. But
Yeah, but that's the thing that I was also referring in the slide is people is showing up to say no, but then now we have to do something. Who is going to do it? Because I have an idea on how to do it, and if other people have another idea on how to do it, then I expect these other people to take the action and do it. What is not fair is to say, oh, I don't want this mode, then do the other, right? So if we take a decision, I don't care. I just put this in one day because I wanted to move and open this discussion. But if we want to solve this problem, I expect a solution and somebody working on the solution. Not, I have a solution, I don't like it, do the other way.
Yeah. I mean, but just to clarify,
and that's I know that this is more towards. I know that you're being you're not voice of others, and they're going expecting. If the people don't want to do this and want to do this the other way, they should step up to do the work.
So
we need to solve the Ingress Nginx problem as soon as possible, because this is being something that is unsustainable. We've been with this team for 2 years and it's getting worse.
So is it just to understand what the alternatives are? If I propose an alternative and that alternative is, basically use any Ingress implementation, but not choose one in the docs for your examples, is that a valid alternative here, or do we feel pretty strongly that we want to have a clear end-to-end example with one implementation?
On my side, I'm happy with that. It's an alternative like the other. Sorry, Ricardo, you're there.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna. I think that we kind of discussed that in privately, you, me, but then at some point. But I will put my Ingress Nginx former maintainer hat now. First, I think that if it is unmaintainable, so you did a presentation explaining all of the responsibilities and all of those other things, and I didn't want to bring that here. But I think that there is a native problem here, which is like when you say that people should be responsible in that case, which I agree with you by the size of the project, but you may be pushing back people that actually want to grow as you did when you started contributing, as I did when I joined Ingress Nginx. So Ingress Nginx, as an example, was something that I was using on my company as a user, and I decided to contribute, and in the end, ended me maintaining that thing for like 5 years when Alejandro decided to step down, right? Because he was burned out. And then I have stepped down because I was burned out by all of the CVEs and no company giving a care, to not use another word, about everything that was happening. And I think that all of this situation keeps repeating and it will keep repeating for those. I've seen that happening with Cluster API, IPAM as an example, which was something that I was working. You've probably heard about something like that with Cluster API, cloud provider, Google Cloud Provider, because I've heard from the maintainer of that as well, that they are struggling to get people contributing. So honestly, if we see that this is a problem, first, Ingress Nginx has another another context before me, which was like, okay, we want to have this reference implementation when there wasn't Ingress API at all, right? And I know that there was this kind of, people going to Alejandro and say like, yeah, you should probably donate that to Kubernetes, right? And then that was, so if this is a problem, besides of all of the conformance and all of those things, I think that the decision should be made like, okay, we cannot sustain that anymore, but not keep trying to, to get solutions on that, because everybody that is gonna join that project, it's gonna end up burnout by, working on
Ricardo,
weekends while no one at Kubernetes cares.
That's
So
why I'm bringing this up. I'm tired of seeing good people being burned out, and this is a 2 years discussion or something like that. I was recovering my notes and the conversation and everything. And that's what I'm saying is, for me, the problem is we are burning out people, and we are not moving in any direction. So I really think that we should make a decision, and better if it's a good decision for everybody. But when I start to talk with different people, it's when I get in conflicting things. So when I say, okay, if nobody wants to move forward, I have one solution. Nobody likes the solution, okay, but we need to propose a different solution.
Yeah, okay. I feel like I'm probably going in circles here, but one of the things I would call out, and I just spent some time looking at the Ingress docs, and they do have, for example, an Ingress Nginx annotation in them, right? And it's just an example of here's how annotations work in Ingress, which is fine, I guess, but like that's something that we would just, I think, remove entirely from the docs. So like it feels like the bigger, well, no, I shouldn't say the bigger work, but any approach we take here is going to require some significant work on our Ingress docs.
But that's what I'm saying is I only see people complaining, but I didn't see anybody moving to say, okay, let's start fixing the docs. Let's start fixing the other things.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
that's fair,
that's what I'm saying is the people more involved in this is the people that is just only finger pointing and saying, I'm not going to change the docs. I just need people to help. I've been spending 2 weeks talking with people to try to find a solution, and there is no solution. It's all the parts are so distant that I really don't know, honestly. But the situation is stuck.
Why obviously I'm biased here, but why can't we update the Ingress docs to say, hey, Ingress exists, you can use it if you want, but you probably want to consider Gateway. We already have some callouts there, but what if we lean a bit more heavily into that? Because at least my understanding is that most Gateway implementations are getting more active development, releases, etc., than corresponding Ingress implementations at this point. That's certainly what we're investing more effort in, as a SIG. Yeah, I don't know, right? Like maybe if we just coordinate all our efforts in that direction, that would be.
Send a PR. If you send a PR, I don't think that anybody is going to argue with that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're approaching the end of the meeting. I think I heard a couple of follow-ups, I think, and also it sounded like to me that there were a couple of different sort of requirements that are coming out. So one is, what is the path forward for users of Ingress Nginx? So, but that's like a separate topic. That's kind of the discussion of Ingress Nginx. The second is the documentation. Like there for sure needs to be a fix to change the passive defaulting, I think, of the current docs. So someone needs to take that as like a work item. And then the third thing I heard is that from a request for testing and conformance, it seems like we need an answer there, because if it's not Ingress Nginx, then it's like, then what? Like
Yeah,
we
we-
need
we
to have
don't do
something to. Sorry, what's that?
We don't have testing and conformance. We only test the API.
Right, but we probably should going forward. Like historically, we found that to be a problem. No,
No,
they
well,
have no conformance.
in Ingress, Ricardo and I removed the Ingress bits in
Oh, that thing.
2020 or something
That's right.
in the E2E framework. I mean, I don't mind bringing them back, but right now it's not a problem.
Okay,
It wasn't being a problem, but look, it's something. What the urgency here is, okay, everybody complains. If somebody can start doing something and propose a solution and acting on the solution. I expect in KubeCon we are face to face to have more clarity, but we need an exit. This is burning people.
I think my statement about the conformance is that it feels like we are moving towards making sure that everything has some level of conformance and some implementation, right? Like that's the whole point of KindNet and other things.
So
Okay.
if you mean literal conformance in the conformance testing sense, you can't have conformance requirements on optional components. So anything that's not part of the default install, we can we certainly need to define a better way of ensuring that network policy and gateway, or well, not gateway, Ingress and other implementations are correct, but the way things are defined right now, that can't be conformance.
Yeah, I meant little c conformance, not big capital trademark conformance, but literally. But I do think that is still a need, right? That the SIG needs to satisfy. It's like we do run a bunch of we do write a bunch of tests, hopefully, and they do need to run against something. Okay, so what do we think are the follow-ups on this one, Rob, Antonio? Ricardo?
Well, I what I heard is anything we do, we need to update docs. I've been meaning to update these docs for a while. It sounds like the changes I'm proposing are less controversial than I expected, so I'll start there. Antonio, I'll defer to you on what you want to do with this potential implementation.
Look, I don't have much more thing to trigger in the conversation and start moving. Once we start moving, we will figure out. But it was just mission accomplished. We had this conversation. So, and in KubeCon, I expect us to get to a more solid plan. But
Okay.
Thank you.
So I guess, do we have one more meeting before KubeCon, by the way? Let's see. Is that?
Yeah, I think it will be like 2 days before KubeCon, so some people may be in the air already. But
yeah, I will be at the airplane already.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we don't see you at KubeCon, then we'll see you at that next meeting. And I think that's the end of the agenda. Sorry, I just need to double check. Oh, sorry. I had one. Oh, yeah. So I had just one announcement, which is that we did have the API review for cluster network policy. The slides are linked in the notes, and then the notes are linked from the slide. So if you want to take a look at the discussion, that's available in the notes.
But there's still a little bit of follow-up to be done. It's not approved or resolved quite yet, right? Just to be clear.
Yeah. So if you, and I think the announcements for when the reviews are in the Slack, and yeah, so if you want to catch the next one, you should watch there. All right. Any other open items? Okay, I don't hear anyone, so see you.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.